All right, what is going on out there, podcast family? Welcome back to another episode of the Hook It podcast, episode number 106 today, and a pretty different and reactive episode. On today's show, I'm joined by Sam Bowell. Sam is the manager down at Rogate Bike Park, where we hosted Freedom Ride 2020. For those not familiar with the UK landscape, it is on this, it's in the south. It's just a little bit below London in a pretty sort of famous area called the Surrey Hills. Sam is part of the B1KE or the bike organisation too, which manages Tidworth Bike Park, Windhill, S4P, and of course Rogate. And on this episode, we wanted to discuss what it means to be a responsible mountain biker and user of the great outdoors, not just in the UK, but globally too. There's been a few issues local to where Sam lives. So we wanted to use these issues as a framework to sort of discuss what it means to be a mountain biker and discuss some of the sort of issues that we come up against, some stereotyping issues, the issue of litter out on the trails, the influx of new people to the sport, and also discuss liability and land ownership. I want to stress before we get into this episode that I really hope that it acts as a conversation starter and a thought provoker for anyone out there who goes out mountain biking or doing anything outdoors, and really think about the impact you are having not only on the people that you meet when you're outdoors, but the impact that you have on your environment, about picking up litter, about always being kind and considerate. So all these sort of things I think are super important, especially right now, as there are more people mountain biking. So if you are new to the sport, hopefully this episode shines light on some of the issues that you could and potentially have faced in the past. Before we get into this episode, though, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. The episode is once again brought to you by the legends at Works and their HydroShot portable pressure washer. Christmas is coming, and you got to get a good gift for someone. It's been a rough year, and that everyone out there loves to clean stuff, so what better gift than a Works HydroShot? It is unlike any other pressure washer on the market and is the perfect tool for all you mountain bikers and moto heads. There is nothing worse than getting home from a day shredding and then having to start the big cleanup. And if you're like me, you keep your bike in the house, it's important for the health of your relationship to make sure that your bike is as clean as possible when you bring it indoors. But it's also really nice to make sure it's as clean as possible when you're done for the day, and the next time you roll it out of the garage or shed or whatever to come ride in, it's a gleamer. So why not wash your bike at the track too? It's easy with the HydroShot, as it's powered by a PowerShare battery and draws fresh water from any source, no matter how remote you are. All you got to do is dip the hose into some water. It could be a stream, a river, a puddle. You could be posh and attach a bottle of mineral water to the HydroShot if you really want to, and voila, you can wash your bike right there, right then. No more having to fire up a petrol jet wash or stopping off at a petrol station and using something that's way too powerful. The rotating head on the HydroShot allows you to switch from mist through to a pulsating sprayer, which is capable of eliminating caked on dirt. The HydroShot is available in numerous models, including a full kit version with a soap bottle attachment, a body-only version, and the new brushless model. It is capable of producing up to 10 times the power of a water hose. The HydroShot comes with a 20-volt PowerShare battery, which you can use across the whole range of Works 20-volt tools. Share the batteries, save the planet, save money. The HydroShot is available from select retailers only, including Amazon, Argos, Halfords, Toolstation, and their official eBay store, where I am told they have a bit of a special offer on at the moment over on the eBay store. So if you are looking for a HydroShot, bit of inside knowledge, they've got a deal. I think there's £50 off over on eBay. So if you're struggling to find that, shoot me a direct message and I'll put you in touch with the right people to find that deal. Or head to their UK website, works-uk.com. We're also brought to you by the gods at Sax Underwear. That is right. Sax makes, again, the ultimate Christmas present for any man. Like any man on the planet loves, or if they don't love, they will love, having fresh underwear. If you haven't tried Sax already, then, these things are legit. If you need to find out where your local stockist is, obviously right now with the lockdown, I think it's pretty important to try and shop local. So if there is a surf, a skate, an outdoor, a bike store local to you that you want to try and use and you're not entirely sure where they are, again, if you want to shoot me a direct message on Instagram or an email, I'll be able to point you in the right direction. In the UK anyway, if you're anywhere else in the world, saxunderwear.com, you can find your local stockist, or just, you can buy off there, to be honest. They ship globally. And last but not least, there would be no podcast if it wasn't for Hookit Products. We are a UK-based distribution company that specialises in making all of our own products right here in Sheffield. Hookitproducts.co.uk. If you enter the promo code podcast, you'll get 10% off anything and everything on the store. If you really want to represent the podcast, check out the merch store too. And don't forget, if you haven't got involved already, you can get a free copy of the Winter Defiance Handbook over on our website, which is stacked with 250 challenges to help you get through the dark, gloomy, wet, cold winter months. And if you're not in the UK, use it anyway. 250 challenges to sink your teeth into. All right, guys, enough waffling from me. Again, kind of want to apologize. This was a reactionary podcast. We thought it was just a good conversation starter to get going. I hope it does shine light on some issues that we are facing out there as mountain bikers. And if you do enjoy the episode, don't forget, please leave a review on iTunes, share it with your friends, and most importantly, enjoy. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Sam Bowell.
Riders ready? Watch the gear.
I got big boy pants on! Did we just become best friends?
The Hookit Podcast.
All right, dude. Here we go. Unplanned, unprepped podcasting. The way we like
normal.
it. Yeah, pretty normal. I'll be honest. Yeah, for the last 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5. pretty unprepared. But sometimes it's the beauty of these things, man. So thank you, Sam Bowell, for coming on the podcast. We met a while ago, I guess now. I mean, I was in touch with you just before Freedom Ride, looking for a venue for that, and I believe you reached out and was kind enough to offer Rogate as a destination. So I guess we've been, stayed in touch pretty much ever since, right? So
pretty much, man. Yeah, it was a good day, and there was a lot of connection going on. The whole podcast, and then the day was just bang on. I felt a real connection with what you and Ollie were all about.
Thank you.
And it's been cool ever since, kind of firing shit backwards and forwards and being goofy and I
think when you really think about it, it's kind of cool because so many new connections come from those sort of events and meetups. I mean, you'd be the second guest, which has come from that, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So
yeah,
that's
man,
pretty
absolutely.
interesting, man. So you should definitely be doing more of those when we are allowed to hang out with our friends and go to bike parks, of which we are not allowed at the moment. But hey, we'll get back to that. Soon.
Very soon, huh?
Fingers crossed. Discipline equals freedom, folks. Stay indoors. Wash your hands. We'll be back out there as soon as possible.
That's it. Sneeze into your elbows and then elbow bump each other. All right, that's how it works. Something like that.
Oh dear. So we'll just give people a bit of a sort of reason why we've decided to do this today. Pretty much off the cuff. I think. With the position you're in, with being one of the, what is your position at Rogate and within that whole?
So currently, right now, I'm the manager at Rogate Bike Park, and that's kind of based on 7 years worth of volunteering there, and then the last 3 years being employed there for bike and running the park. And then 20 years plus worth of either being an active mountain biker or deeply interested in it one way or another. And I guess loads of that's going to come into kind of where we go with things today. And a bit of that history. So
the main reason that obviously you reached out and wanted to sit and do this was we'll get into it a little bit more deeply, but just so people understand what this episode is going to be about a little bit more, it's going to be basically you reached out. There's been some issues, I believe, down your way, down south, in the south of the UK, which is known as a pretty sort of popular riding destination, I'd say now, especially with some of the local pros that you guys have got. I think a lot of people head to the Surrey Hills, as it's known, to ride. I think from the outside looking in, again, we'll get into this a little bit more deeply, there's been a lot of new people get into mountain biking around the UK, around the world, which is really cool, but it has meant there's been an influx of people in certain areas, especially the most popular areas. So you reached out mainly because there's been some issues around your local area, and we were going to use that as a bit of a framework to talk about trail advocacy, trail etiquette, and anything and everything around that. And I think obviously for me, and I'm going to be totally honest, Sam, and you know this already, but for the listeners, I've not really done much research into this. I think I'm going to come at it from a point of view of just being a regular mountain biker. I'm just the regular guy. I don't maybe get involved as much as I should in trail maintenance. I don't really get involved with sort of trail advocacy and stuff like that. That we have a lot of that, but where I'm from in the Peaks District around Sheffield and Northern England, but I'm just that regular dude, man, who goes out. I ride the stuff that I know I should ride. Every now and again, I might sneak onto something that I probably shouldn't ride, but I am aware of it, and I'm also aware of the certain movements that are trying to help keep our trails rideable, keep them accessible, but again, I'm that sort of guy that, you know, I'm aware of it. I know the people, you know, in certain ways I have been involved, but for the most part, I'm not as involved as I should be as a mountain biker and outdoor enthusiast. So that's where I'm coming at it from. And like I said, I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people thinking that I'm some sort of expert, because I'm not. I'm just going to try and, facilitate putting some ideas out there and having the conversation. So
exactly, man. I think that's the key. And you know, I'd like to say as well, I've been pretty heavily involved since I started riding. Like really, it's early doors with trying to get things official to an extent. And so, you know, even at 14, 15, I was going to meetings with people who didn't have a clue what the sport was about. You know, we're talking late 90s, early 2000s, this tiny, completely different world. And since then, you know, I took a break about 10 years from riding, and up until about 2010. And then from then till now has been all about the same thing. So like my background's definitely not the same as a lot of other people's in that sense. And there are going to be things that I'm going to say that people aren't going to understand necessarily. It might feel a little bit either negative or I'm going to use the word aggressive, but I don't mean aggressive, but you know what I mean? And it's not, totally. I'm not trying to take the moral high ground or anything, but I do feel like there's a lot that is just not out there. People don't necessarily understand or do misunderstand. And we can make this so much better just by starting to have the right conversations and by thinking a little bit more about what it is we're doing and where we need to go with things, you know, and embracing the good things and trying to get rid of some of the bad things. And you know, so there's an awful lot going on. It's a huge topic. And we're just, I think certainly in Britain or a little bit, and certainly in the south of England, we're a little bit far behind the curve as it is at the moment. So
interesting. I think from my perspective, you know, a lot of what I see going on up here is we do have an amazing group of people up my way called Ride Sheffield. And Ride Sheffield do amazing work. You know, I know for a fact, you know, I don't really know the ins and outs of exactly everything they do. That I know that, you know, a couple of times a week they're out doing trail maintenance on bridleways. You know, it's not a bike park up here or anything like that, but they're out doing that. I know that they're always in touch with the Forestry Commission. We've got a few people up here, like we call him Mayor Dallow, John Dallow. He works for the council, but he helped basically start stuff like the Steel City downhill race. We got the Steel City sort of dual race, which is in the centre of Sheffield. It used to be once a year. Obviously, we've missed it this year. So all those sort of cool things that help promote mountain biking in and around Sheffield and the Peak District. There is a couple of really like active groups that are doing stuff, but again, that's pretty much like the extent of my knowledge. And I know, like you said, some people really lean towards the like getting involved side of it. Some people seem to just want to keep the nose clean, just go out for a bike ride, bike back in the garage or shed and just forget about it. But again, that's something that I really want to dig into with you as well, because we go out riding these trails, and whether you blow out a corner or you demolish a jump because you case the shit out of it, at the end of the day, there's someone behind you that's tidying all that stuff up. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. So
Sure.
I think the best place to start there would maybe just to give a little bit of, again, some perspective about you and what you do day to day. I think that might be pretty interesting for people, again, so that they understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
Wow, this is really civilized, bro. Can we just lose
it? I know.
Can we just tell a dick joke or
Oh man, dick jokes off the cuff as well, mate. Put me on the spot. We'll get there. I'm sure we'll get there. There'll be some innuendo somewhere, right?
100%.
So, okay. I mean, I guess the best place to start, because what I do on a day-to-day basis is probably nowhere near what people would imagine or expect. And it's, I mean, if I try and condense it all, like basically my mountain bike journey, I think it's probably the easiest way of doing it. And so I started riding on it was a Rally Max, rigid Rally Max, up in my local woods we called the hills, really sort of, well, it was just a few hills. It was nothing. It's 3 layers, like.
You always been from where you are right now? Or?
Yeah, pretty much around here. So I grew up in the same village as a lot of people, anyone from down here knows. So Mike from MB Cyclery was one of the first people I met out on bikes. And so we started riding together. And then this little twerp who, I don't know, people might recognize these days, called Brendan Fairclough, kind of started popping his head up. He's a couple of years younger than me, but his brother and my brother are the same age. We went to the same school. We all grew up in the same village. So we all started getting riding together, and loads of the names from down here, Dave Valler, DV, and Meadows, Ollie Medcalf, all these guys, we all kind of grew up in the same area on the same hill. And it was just this, shitty little patch of, honestly, like 3 layers of hills that had nothing there and weren't really suitable for footpaths on National Trust lands. And we just rode our bikes around there a bit, built a few jumps, ride a few steeps and chutes and stuff like that. We used to do these insane, way before 4-cross, but basically like 4 to 6 people racing down a track, proper elbow to elbow. Got dad cam footage of it somewhere. Crazy shit, real bad. And it was fine. It kept us busy. That's where we lived. And then we'd go up to Longmore, onto Weavers Down, where Pedal Hounds was starting to do some short course races, and there were some I think there were Sam's, maybe old downhill races, like national level. And you get people, Steve Gill, and people who are still around to this day. Crazy, people who meant something. G. Atherton came down and raced down this way, and Brendan's rising through the ranks and stuff. And all of these places are starting to gather a bit of momentum, but we've not got the internet, we've not got YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, blah blah blah, to make it huge. So it's a fairly small collection. You can go out and ride and not really be bothered by anything. And it's where I first rode Rogate as well. Tullicum, as we knew at the time, was a short course downhill circuit. It was just a race only venue, and you'd go there every now and again outside of that. And our local bit, the hills, basically they sold off the top of the land a little bit. The National Trust did, to a bunch of houses that backed onto it. And as soon as they did that, there was a little bit more attention, and they started kicking up about it. So we went to a meeting or 2 with councillors who had no idea what was going on. They don't know. Mountain biking is not what we knew it as at the time. What on earth are you wearing a full face helmet? You're wearing motocross gear. Your bike looks like a motorbike. What the hell's going on? You're jumping off what now? This is crazy. You can't have it. And I guess, when you're 15, that means quite a lot. You start thinking about sitting in an official setting with parents and people who don't like you, don't want you there, and people from these, landowners, land management, and trying to work it out. It didn't work out. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what we were doing. We had nothing. And it, they took little excavators in eventually and flattened some natural stuff as well, which was quite heartbreaking, to be honest. Like, we didn't even build that. That was just part of the ground.
Just there, yeah.
Because it looked like something we were riding, So yeah, fast forward a bit, and I was getting back into riding and saw some posters up in the local bike shops for basically a committee being formed at what is now Rogate to to try and get a club together to try and save it. And it was based upon, and what most of this conversation is going to come back to really is liability. Somewhere along the lines, someone has a responsibility and liability over the land that's being used. And so basically in that decade I'd been gone, the sport had grown and more people were starting to use the site. And the Forestry Commission couldn't handle the liability of it. Right? At that time, the Forestry Commission, Forestry England as they are now, had never been successfully sued. I don't know if that's still true, but as an organisation, as a national organisation, they've never had a successful lawsuit against them. But their budget was, I think it was like 23 million or something across the board.
Right. What, to fight lawsuits?
No.
Oh.
That was what they had. All right. And if you imagine one successful lawsuit, maybe coming out, in a mountain biking terms, for instance, from a life-changing injury or something like that, could easily get into half of that figure. You're talking half of your budget's wiped out by one successful lawsuit, as people are getting more and more used to litigation and finding loopholes in things. They have to cover themselves. They cannot afford to put themselves in a position where they can just turn a blind eye to what people are doing on their land. That is their responsibility to look after, and therefore the people on it as well. So yeah, this club gets formed. We go to a meeting in a pub, and there's about 30, 40 people there. I just wanted to meet people. My riding buddies were either professionals or professional drinkers like I was at that time,
Yeah.
And it wasn't much in the between. I needed to meet more people to ride. And so that's what I thought I'd do. Going to go to this group meeting and got involved and then stuck around. The committee went from, as I say, there were probably about 30 people at the first meeting, probably 15 or so signed up to help out. And at our lowest points, that dropped down to maybe like 6 people. And we just ticked it over. We had to form a club. We had to get proper AGMs going and all of these sorts of things. We had books so that we knew what the funds coming in and going out were. And we were sistered up with Aston Hill. Tidworth later came on board, a little site called Tilgate, which isn't even around anymore. And it was like the first example of a bike park network, I suppose, before the world was, not the world, but before the UK was ready for it, before the south of England really knew what it was about. And so, that kind of went through. We went through some real bad times trying to get it going. And the end goal was pretty much where we are now. We always had this vision of, we can have a bike park. We didn't think it would be anywhere near as popular as it is now or anything. But, there are things that we were working on for a real long time with this vision of how it could be. And we broke our backs over it. And it was for nothing. We do a Christmas party once a year, but it was entirely voluntary. There are people out there who have put so much time into making sure that it was a thing. And so that's where we are now. Basically, the CTC, who aren't even around anymore, they're Cycling UK now. They're the people who provided our insurance, basically the third-party insurance, which is like the most important bit really from a liability side of things, is making sure that and it's not personal insurance, it's one of the big things people misunderstand, I think, is it's about if you have a collision with a third party, a walker, for instance, on the footpath, then you're covered, and they're covered as well, and if something were to happen within the park, which we have control over, a feature collapses underneath you or something like that, then obviously you have a path to follow to make sure that you're covered for it. But the important bit is that third party, same as when we drive a car, right? It's the minimum insurance you have to have. It's third party, and it's to protect you and other people as well. And so that's basically what the CTC provided. They then pulled out of mountain biking. They really weren't prepared for it, didn't really know what they were doing, and bailed on it and left us massively in limbo for a while. At sort of the same time, as a result of it, Bike as an organisation started to be built up, and we started that conversation to try and bring them in. There was no one else who could really do it for us. We tried looking at the route of getting insurance ourselves as a collective, but insurance companies haven't got a clue what you're talking about, and you can't afford to be put in that position as a voluntary force that suddenly, well, who's in charge of the liability now? Oh, well, it's you guys. Are you kidding me? No fucking chance, man. Like, I don't even have anything. I don't have a pot to piss in, let alone someone comes suing me for a few million quid. There's no chance. We can't afford to be there. So yeah, it took a good couple of years probably to get to the point where we could get contracts signed between the landowners, the land managers, Forestry England and Bike and ourselves. And as soon as that happened, I came on as the first full-time member of staff, and since got up to the over the last 3 years where we've now got 4 full-time members of staff, and part-time staff as well, and loads of other crazy shit as well. So yeah, okay. it's been a bit of a whirlwind. But,
definitely. So just to unpack that a little bit at first. So when you first started putting this together, so has it always been called Bike? So which for the listeners, it's B1KE, right?
Yeah.
So that's always been the name of it. Yep. And so you had this idea to form like a collective in which bike parks almost work together to rally to get money, to get, how did that?
No,
was the initial business plan?
Bikes. That's my employer essentially. So Richard Kelly is one of the founders of Bike, and it was set up. I mean, he's Surrey Hills born and bred, lives out that way, and it has always been a part of mountain biking one way or another, providing experiences, working with schools or community groups or whatever, doing training, coaching on the side of things. I believe that S4P was probably one of the main instigators for it. I mean, whether it was just a fortuitous set of circumstances or not, I don't know. But obviously the old Milford jumps were in a pretty similar situation, I suppose, where they were unofficial jumps, and they had to be cleared. But in order to keep it going, they were gifted a bit of land, then to build some jumps for the community, for people to use, and it still needs that same protection. You still need to have those insurances in place, which is why you need to be a bike member to free to ride, minimum bike member to go and ride at S4P. But that's what you need, But we handle the liability side of things, and then Tidworth, who was the last to join on the CTC, was the first pay to ride bike park within the bike network, so to speak. And so they joined up, and they were going off down the southwest, and the Black Cannon Collective, where Windhill is now, was obviously courting similar sorts of things. So there's just all these relationships that are starting to form with completely different land agents too. So we're forestry, and Milford was parish land, I believe. S4P is maybe gifted by the church. Tidworth's MOD land, so that's a completely different set. And Windhill's in Longleat Estate, so that's a private estate, And so even within how those parks operate under an umbrella, you're still looking at completely different operating procedures, really. There is no standard. There's no standard fit for any of it. You've got to be pretty flexible in order to make it work. But if you want to really bring it down, then what you try and provide is a safe and effective way of providing people the type of riding that you can and that they want in that place. That's as simple as it gets, really. And so S4P, we try, and it's super hard to do when there's no money coming in from it, but that there are people there one way or another, and you try and provide a dirt jump area that's at least going to be permanent and isn't going to be flattened on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And the other bike parks, you try and work to their strengths to make sure that they're safe, really. And that mountain biking's got somewhere to go.
Yeah. So, okay, it's interesting though that you formed this sort of collective. Has anyone else been doing that? Because again, I'm pretty naive to how this works. So, is that something that a lot of other parks are doing? Yeah, is it a network, and there's a,
I don't think so. No,
right.
I don't think so. It's a bit of an unusual model, and again, this will probably come up a bit. There's definitely a bit of within the scene and the world. I mean, let's face it, these are societal problems as much as anything, but there's definitely a certain amount of paranoia and jealousy, I guess, of people making a success of things. So when you have a network of things, it feels like a chain, right? And it can start to lose its identity to a certain extent, even though the identity is its greater thing, So initially, the CTC network, so when it was ourselves and Tilgate and Tidworth and Aston as four, much as we were all under the same umbrella group, there was no real connectivity. There were some weird things that went on.
What is the advantages then of putting everything under one banner?
I think, and it's again like one of these things that we're lacking here is keeping things inclusive and structured. You should know that when you go to Windhill, if you've been to Rogate, if you've been to Tidworth, you should understand how the grading system works, for instance.
Right, totally.
And then what, you can make associations between them. So you can go and ride somewhere you've never ridden before on a different type of terrain. All these parks are completely different. But if you understand how one of them works, you should understand how the rest of them work, which should make your life much easier. You should just be able to turn up and get on with it and not be like, oh, well, I've been to so many uplifts and I know how an uplift trailer works. It's fine. I put my bike on. The guy's like, no, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? You don't do it like that. Oh, fuck, man. It's a bike on a trailer. I should be able to work this out, And you think all these things you don't really take for granted.
Right. So almost forming this collective is like making everything a little bit more uniformed and a little bit more
theoretically.
Yeah.
Theoretically. And it means that we can, as a network, we can spread ourselves a little bit better. We can move
rally
people around between them. Yeah, exactly that. And it opens up the doors for race series and things like that without having to go hunting for venues that are really hard to come by, or trying to think about how can I get insurance for that, or how do I sort out access for that, or whatever. You have strength in numbers, right? It's a known thing, and you have that togetherness. So in terms of running a park, it's invaluable really to have that extra support unit. And I think as a user base, you might not necessarily appreciate it a lot of the time, but there is a lot to be said for having uniformity within things. And I've traveled a bit. I'm not the most traveled guy, but anytime I go to a bike park, I'm looking out for things that either we do or don't do, or how they do something different, and whether that's a good thing or not. And you go to Whistler and you see things, you're like, okay, that's interesting. Actually, maybe that is useful here. And they've had the same. I know they have the same at Tidworth and at Windhill, especially. Luke down there has just come back from a year out in New Zealand, but the guy travels a lot, gets around a lot. Is checking out bike parks and how they're building, how the trails, what's valid, what isn't, and you have that to sort of build upon and to take from different experiences, different people. It forms discussion. It gives you strength. It gives you a foundation when you go to then look at other places.
Totally, yeah, because it's forcing numbers as well, right?
Yeah. But also just the differences between them. Again, in order to get these 3 paid bike parks going and 4, if we're taking S4P in, we've had to work with 4 different land owners or managers, and completely different types of them, which gives you the ability to then actually start helping other people out when they're working with something similar. Have you ever worked with a private landlord? Well, yeah, I have actually, as it happens. This is what you kind of need to be thinking about, or it doesn't matter who your landlord is at this point. This is what you need to be thinking about. So there's a lot in it for sure.
Definitely. I guess it's a lot of stuff that people do oversee when you just rock up to your local bike park and take the bike out of the van and off you go. There's so much going on behind the scenes, and it is interesting to learn more about it, to be honest, because again, for me, I'm totally naive to this stuff. You don't even really think about it. So underneath the bike banner, who put the 1 in there, man? Jeez. underneath.
I think as much as anything, do you know, bikes.com's Rocky Mountain? Hey, so
Of course.
they nailed that one pretty early
Big
on.
time.
So I think bikes.com's going to end up badly. I don't know. I can't take any credit or heat for that one.
Got you.
I'm late, man. I'm last to the party on.
So underneath the bike banner, then, so you've got S4P, Tidworth, Win Hill, Rogate,
and us. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So 4 parks
for now. Yeah.
For now. Okay. All right. Is that a teaser? Like more to come? Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. That's it. Okay. Right. I think I figured it out. So you've been with full time for 3 years. Did you say?
Yeah, just over now. 3 years and a week. I think it was last week was my first.
And I'm kind of interested to know. You know, you said you were volunteering before. Mm-hmm. What did you do beforehand?
So as the committee, as we were at the time, we met every month, and to discuss things. We'd have for a long time, we did a monthly dig day, public dig day, which, well, we'll come to that later if you want, but it definitely wasn't always successful. But yeah, I mean, we went from having basically Rogate as it was a web of crisscrossing trails of, you know, just they were everywhere, millions of them crossing over the top of each other. And you know, you've been to the site. It's not a big site.
No.
It's a pretty small site. And from a liability standpoint, it was just no good. So we needed to try and rationalise things. So
and just quickly, so at that point, then, sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right, man.
You know, you've got the committee by, you know, but how were people manning the park day to day, or was it just how did that work?
No, so that over those years, as I said, like things, they went from very strong numbers to very few numbers. We'd be up there. I mean, I would ride up there all weekend. Get be up at 10 o'clock and leave there at 5 o'clock and have not had lunch or anything, you know. And just
sounds like freedom ride.
Yeah, man. Yeah, not too dissimilar. It was really kind of similar to that. Yeah. But you'd get days where there's no one there. Like a busy day. To put it, it's so different now, but we'd be getting maybe 30 people a week going there, you know.
Wow.
And a busy day, once in a blue moon, you might get 100 people on site. Now we're, you know, before the COVID situation, last winter, we tapped out, I think it was like 330 people in one day, but regularly 250s. Since COVID, we've been limiting our numbers to 130, but that's been fairly regular. So the day before lockdown 2, so that was a Wednesday, right? That was sold out 130 people, plus evening passes as well. So yeah, you know, 130 to 150 people, fairly regularly. Yeah. But back then it was very, very, very different, you know. I went from, so when we started on the committee, I was a gardener, doing gardening maintenance and landscaping and stuff. So I had a reasonable amount of time and a van with tools in it. So more often than not, I'd spend, you know, 3 or 4 evening sessions up at the hill, tidying up things, digging new lines, or trying to rationalize things. It was trying to get the hill to be manageable when there was someone there. If someone came to ride, then we'd take day passes as well. But it was, you know, it was much more of an honesty thing than anything else. And because no one was out to make money from it, it wasn't costing anything. You know, it wasn't costing anything for us to be there. It wasn't important. But what those day passes at the time allowed for was to show that it was working as a model for starters. It paid a little bit of rent towards the site from the Forestry Commission, but it really allowed us to do things that people wanted and hadn't been done for a long time, like putting on races. So we started maybe 2012. We did our first annual race, and we had just the worst luck, man. It snowed, so we got snowed off. We got like commissaires getting stuck on their way to us. It was horrendous. Oh, God. Rescheduled. I think that was maybe October, November. So, you know, but we didn't really get snow, and it shut it down. Yeah. So we rescheduled, and we rescheduled for April, and it snowed again. God. Just couldn't believe it. And it was in April. It's like, what the fuck is going on? But since then, this is the first year since that year that we haven't put a race on, that we haven't done our annual race. Right. And that race at that same time of year, we always try and do it at sort of October, November time at the end of the year. that's become a bit of a big deal within the scene, with locally at least. The biggest little race, Rogate World Champs, it's a thing. And when the boys aren't off doing Rampage or off racing elsewhere, they'll come and race as well. So we'll often get Brendan racing or Bernard racing or whatever, and the other, the guys who you don't know about. But Ethan Craik, current Junior World Cup champ, is, cut his teeth with us outside of his BMX racing background's been with us. Luke Williamson, also Junior World Cup racer, just up the road. These guys, they're all coming down and shredding it out with us. So that's really what the committee allowed us to do, was to build the foundations for making it an official place, but really kept it going. It was, maintenance when it needed it, refreshing things when it needed it, and keeping it tidy and secure, and just trying to be a part of the greater area, of the community to an extent, and trying to keep it.
I guess it also makes it look more official. People from the outside looking in who don't know anything about mountain biking, who are maybe just walkers who enjoy that area and stuff, to show that there's a community involved and that there's an organisation, just definitely makes it look a bit more legit as well.
Sure, man. I mean, when I rode there in the end of the 90s, there were 3 burnt out cars at the bottom, and they've kind of molded into the ground eventually. You can see bits of one of them, but since we were there, that didn't happen. You get a couple of things abandoned every now and again, but much as people might look at it and see that, oh shit, stuff's changing, and what the fuck are these idiots doing? Or it looks messy, or there's too many guys riding their bikes really fast. Some of them might also think, oh hey, actually this is tidier than it's ever been. There are no abandoned vehicles here anymore, and the roadside's clear, and okay, occasionally you're going to find energy drinks or whatever, but if there's people there on the regular, then that gets cleaned up, it gets sorted out, and it's done quicker. So I like to think, as someone who has been local my whole life and has kind of spent my whole life outside one way or another, I do take a pride in keeping that and making sure that locals are as on side as possible. But you're never going to please everybody.
No.
It's visually it's an aggressive sport, so it does maybe trigger certain things in the same way that skating does, or BMXing or whatever, or motocross or anything like that. It looks very different to our surroundings, it's quite jarring. So there's always going to be those people who are like, no way, man. Yeah,
definitely. No, it reminds me of a situation we had when I was younger as well, which to be honest, I kind of forgotten about. We had a really sort of infamous little BMX track by me when I was growing up. So the first ever BMX race I went to was there. I was about 2 or 3 years old. There's a photo of me there, and late 80s BMX when it was pumping. And I continued riding there and going there until I was about 14, and then it got sort of knocked down by the council. But it just reminded me when you were saying about being younger and going to these council meetings. I remember we rallied, we got together, and we went to the council meeting, and we managed to get a piece of land given to us. But unfortunately, we'd sort of lost momentum, because it is. I think we'd spent all those years down. It was an old BMX track which we sort of turned into some. There's still a BMX track, but then there's dirt jumps around the edge, dirt jumps in the middle. It was just a hangout every single day. That's where I spent my time, and it got ploughed, and then you just sort of a bit reluctant to start again. I think we were all getting to that age at 13, 14, creeping into 50. I remember actually going down there once, and I was driving, so I must have been 17. We just never did anything with it. So we rallied and got the piece of land next door to the old BMX track, and we just didn't do anything with it. Yeah, we managed to get dirt jumps built there. Council paid for everything, but we just didn't maintain it, and it's a real shame really looking back, because it could have been such a really sick place. But it is what it is.
It is what it is, and I think at that time certainly skate parks was probably the big thing. Village skate parks or little town skate parks, and lots more of that. It was never really my thing. I, kind of tried a bit of inline and skateboarding, and was never very good at either. But those were the things that were kind of gathering a little bit of momentum and passion from kids sort of my age at the time, and so that was there. But mountain biking was not a thing. Cross country races, we had some pretty good cross country races local to us, but again, it's such a different set of scenarios to where we were. And as you say, it kind of moves in fads, right?
Totally.
You're 14, 15. Next thing you know, you're going to college and, you got a girlfriend, you're going to town, or you're learning to drive or whatever. And it's exactly what happens. You get to your early 20s very quickly.
You do, definitely, man.
Oh, shit. My hobby's been partying. That's not a hobby.
Totally. I do often think about that place. I drive past it almost every day, and some very fond memories there. And there's definitely some regrets too. Like, I really wish I'd kept that place up, and now it could be a really good asset for kids coming through, especially right now as again mountain biking is booming and BMX has gone through its thing and stuff. But anyway, by the by. So let's talk. I mean, I think you've really laid the ground there. Yeah. Ground really good about your background and how you're probably quite qualified to talk about some of this stuff. So what's been going on? Let's just talk, because there's been some shit popping off, right? Which is how we got this thing rolling. So what's going off locally, and how do we use this as a template to sort of make people aware of these? How do we elaborate on that? How do we make people more aware of what's going on and how this reflects around the world?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I'm talking very specifically about my area, although I think it probably does reflect on everyone's area one way or another, and certainly everybody's got a part to play in it. So, over the last 2 years, and this weekend in particular, came to a head a very popular, very well-known local spot. I'm not going to say where, but anyone who's from the southeast of England's going to know probably where I'm talking about. But home to our big names for sure. We're talking local zones to Brendan, Ollie, Bernard, Sam Wren, big name riders who are riding these places regularly, and it's important and have done forever. This really is where people are cutting their teeth in the south of England, and it does spill out to the Surrey Hills stuff. It's all going to come together. We've noticed a lot more conflict between everybody, all of the user bases,
really,
and then official conflict by way of really removing mountain bikers from the scene completely. So Longmoor was probably the first one, and a lot of the MOD lands over the last couple of years. MOD land tends to, certainly around here, be on fairly sandy soil. We're in a pretty good sandy belt of ground, so which makes it ideal in the winter in the slot.
Yeah.
So that definitely adds traffic to things, especially when we're also kind of surrounded by chalk and clay, which does not work so well in the slop. We don't get good bedrock like you guys get. we have very little of that. So when there's an issue, it tends to be highlighted pretty quickly and easily, volumes of traffic,
Yeah.
And the other problem obviously with MOD land is the fact that it is for training our soldiers, our armed forces. So they're using it. It's not just wasteland. It might seem like it a lot of the time, but it's not. And also a lot of the time when those guys are out training, they are literally wearing clothing you're not meant to see. So it puts them and you as a rider in quite a dangerous position. So I don't know what really kicked it off, but there was a point last summer where regular police were positioned at the top of the hill access points to this MOD land and turning away mountain bikers, saying that you can't be coming in here, you can't be riding in here. And since that time, really, the land management company Landmark, who look after a lot of the MOD land, are regularly patrolling the areas in trucks, and again removing mountain bikers. Now there's a lot of riding in there. This is where I did my first downhill race. These are the places where there were regional, if not national level races, and they've had annual motorbike enduro. I don't know if you know of the Natterjack. Have you ever heard of the Natterjack enduro race? It's quite a big one they do around Christmas time, and they've had rallies in there, big running events, so tough mudders, that sort of thing, brutal races, and hell runner and stuff. So they hold events in there, and it would be the most ideal place for an enduro. Now, the downhill tracks we used to race are so often now, enduro based, and it would work, but they will not work with mountain bikers, and that is because of relationships in the past and more recent.
I'm sorry, this piece of land too, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, sorry.
Is the bridle paths going through it? Is the footpaths? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's permissive access. They can lock it up when they're training, and they do so more now. They're much more active. The MOD's sold off a lot of its land, so they're now much more focused on where they are. But it's permissive, and they allow people to use footpaths and bridleways. But we're not just riding on bridleways. We're cutting off into single tracks and stuff, and it's one of those things that if you have a good symbiotic relationship, it's not a problem. But it's when one party or the other loses focus on that or takes advantage of the other that it sours, and then we're at the bottom of the chain. We have nothing to offer. That's kind of one of the main takeaways from this, is that really, if we don't toe the line to an extent, we stand to lose, be that rightly or wrongly. We don't have anything to say, hey, well, if you don't let us come ride here, then you're going to...
Our bargaining tool isn't great, is it? Yeah.
No, it's like, what, have no trouble? This is pretty shit.
Yeah.
Shit argument, So, yeah, and that, every time you lose a spot like that, the people are going to move on to another one, which means that somewhere that's already maybe under pressure is going to become more pressurized. Now, obviously, we've got areas, we've got bike parks, official zones, and that's great. But we've got a capacity. We can't take infinite,
especially right now. So it seems like we've had an influx of people riding, but we've had a decrease in how many people can go riding officially because the bike parks are closed because of lockdown. So
So it's a part of the pressure for sure, but the other thing is people don't want to just ride bike park all the time. No. I certainly don't want to ride a bike park all the time, and not when we're talking micro bike parks. We're not. I know there's a lot of desire for us to be the same as a bike park Wales, the same as Leger Bike Park or whatever, or Chatel, but we can't be. It's a small hill, and all of these we are in a traditionally flat area of the world, frankly, and of the UK.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, in Suffolk and Norfolk, but we're not in a particularly hilly place here. So you need to be able to get out and range around a little bit, and I completely appreciate that. But what's been happening is a lot more people, and then a lot more involvement, but without any real knowledge on how to do it. And so this has kicked off recently again, not on MOD land this time, but on it's split between National Trust, Forestry England, and I think there's some private ownership in there as well. Right. And then we've got areas like the Surrey Hills where I don't know if you saw, but over the first lockdown there was a load of older trails off of Pease Lake, particularly off the back of Pitch Hill, that got removed, maybe stuff that had been there for a long time, but older features and things that seemingly had been used for years with no problems, but they were then flattened, removed.
Right.
There's a lot more older trails like Evian, for instance, that have been shut down by the landowners. And we're talking different landowners, different reasons for doing things. But what is very obvious is that it's becoming more prevalent. We are losing more spots. And even if we're not losing them, they're gaining negative attention, which is as bad, really, because as soon as it becomes negatively highlighted and broadcast, the people who already don't like it are going to dislike it more. So we're noticing more, and part of it's going to be just our visibility and the way we can see things through Instagram, through Facebook, through YouTube. But there are obviously organizations popping up to try and highlight trail sabotage. Well, that wasn't really a thing until fairly recently. Why has trail sabotage suddenly kicked off in the way it has? Well, it's got to mean more conflict, right?
Yeah,
that's
sure,
people disliking more trail.
I feel like as well, with what we've been going through over the last sort of 8 or 9 months around the world, it's driven people outdoors, and there's a lot more people seeing mountain biking who maybe before didn't venture outdoors that often. And if they did, they'd stick to, I don't know, a certain walk or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas right now that, they've got a bit more time, they're going out a little bit further. And like you said earlier, mountain biking is quite an aggressive thing. Like if you're walking up a trail and someone's coming towards you with GoPros all over themselves, dressed like a 90s motocross rider, it's an aggressive thing. Like and I think it unfortunately does have that bit of a stigma attached to it still, that it's like this extreme sport, which for most people who ride it probably couldn't be further from the truth, right? They just like going out on their e-bike and just putting in miles, but there is obviously certain pockets which aren't that. But
I think there's there's a duality in it, that it's seen as kind of a rogue thing. A lot of people see it maybe as, if you said mountain biking, right? Say, oh yeah, I'm a mountain biker. The image they'll probably pull up is 1995, rigid, seat up your jacksie, super long stem, lycra, plodding through some bridleways.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if they see a mountain biker actually out, they'll view them more as an off-road BMXer, right? And as mountain bikers, I would say we almost do the same thing. A lot of people might think they're quite extreme, but actually aren't.
Yeah.
But then also don't take enough responsibility for how extreme things can be. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like people put themselves in situations they really shouldn't put themselves in because they don't appreciate how fucking dangerous it really is.
Totally.
And at the same time, they then do things which, aren't anywhere near as gnarly as they think they are. So it's really hard to try and to get people to understand it for what it really is. It's what we're doing isn't necessarily cycling so much anymore. It has branched off from that. It's not touring or whatever. It's what we're generally talking about is a more extreme version of it, a more aggressive version of mountain biking. But it doesn't have to be seen as such. It can be, we enjoy it because it's calming, right? Same as surfing, man. Surfing's super aggressive. Think about it. Like,
totally.
None of that's really that peaceful, but there is.
But there is definitely some zen to it. Yeah, totally.
And skiing, snowboarding, whatever, you're literally throwing yourself down a hill, like using friction and nothing else. Well, as little friction as you can, but that's it. Describe it to someone. Describe skiing to someone who's blind, and they're probably going to shit.
Strap some planks to your feet and go down a mountain. You'd be like, what?
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same, isn't it? You're going to sit on this two-wheeled object and you're going to go down a mountain. It's you're right. It is the same.
So it's the reasons for the conflicts are infinite. There are more people riding. There are more people not riding. There are more people outside adventuring. There are more people. Yeah. There just are more people.
And do you feel like as well the sort of way in which we do ride, like we just said before, like people now, let's say, seems like down your way, love riding loam. And to ride loam means you need to cut a track, which means you need to go somewhere you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And it's that as well. And it's this whole sort of movement of, building, I don't know, kickers in middle of I don't know, I'm trying to think of more examples, but you know what I mean, just like building more natural features. But to do that you need to sort of go where you shouldn't be. But I mean, that's top and bottom of it, right?
It's hard, isn't it, man? This is the trouble, right? Because the more I think about it, the more I try and explain it, the more I know I just sound like an asshole who's saying, don't go out and do anything, just come and ride a park every now and again and then go on holiday. And it's not true. But it really boils down to just being responsible for what you're doing and thinking about it. We don't have much space. And again, certainly not in this part of the country. There's a lot of outdoor space, but we can't use a lot of it. We have a lot of farmland, which is, apart from not being usable for the purpose we're looking for, it's someone's farm, be that crop or wildlife or whatever. You can't just go messing around with that sort of thing. That's not fair, apart from anything. But it does affect all sorts of things. If you have festivals in fields and you leave your tents in there or your tent pegs in there, then when the farmer then comes to harvest it, his machinery gets fucked by tent pegs that are flying through it, or his sheep die because it just munched on a guide rope that they didn't know was there, or whatever.
Or a leftover pill.
Yeah. So it does have repercussions somewhere along the lines. We've also got a lot of wealthy people, and as an area we're fairly wealthy anyway, but that means a lot of the land is private. The other side of that is we have people with expendable money who are quite happy to go out and buy kit, bikes, e-bikes, whatever that may be, and maybe only use it a little bit, so they're not fully aware of what it is they're even getting into. They're just around. It's another thing, it's another toy. The marinas are all full of boats. There's people with jet skis everywhere, apart from Ollie. Everyone else has got one. Even you bloody got one, right? And those sorts of things, that they do have this roll-on effect. But then also people are very protective of their lands. We've also got a lot of heritage stuff. There's it's getting younger, but there's quite a lot of older populations around here. We've got lots of small villages, parishes with older care homes that are built around our outdoor space and being able to use them. There's a lot of horse riders. My sister's an equestrian, always has been. And
there's always conflict between horse riders and mountain bikers. It's that you can kill someone literally if someone's on a horse and you come around a corner and that horse bolts. Like this shit's dangerous, man. Same as hitting someone.
It's a big thing, right? You don't want to be getting in a fight with a horse because you're not winning. You're not winning that one at all, man. No. And that doesn't take much to freak them. Any one of those people is going to have a conflict with any one of the others. The older people are going to be pissed at us. They're going to be pissed at the horse riders because the horse riders are riding on footpaths and creating more hassle. Or, at least our bikes don't take a shit in the middle of a path. But so all of those things that create this melting pot of potential for conflict. And what we need to try and do is be less reactionary about it,
right,
and more proactive about how we can really make it work for us moving forwards. This is such an important part of the country for mountain biking, for moving it forwards, with the strength of the professional athletes that we've got in the south, not even just the southeast, but across the whole of the south, really. Apart from Wales and Scotland, there isn't that same body of people. There is a reason why they've all managed to get. There's not something in the water, I can tell you that much. Nothing good, anyway.
No.
Lead. I don't think lead makes you go faster. Chlorine and shit. But we need to be able to protect it. We need to be able to make sure that the next generation of riders, which again, we've got two of the strongest in the junior downhill circuit, on our doorstep. And if we don't look after what we've got, then there won't be anything for the next ones. And we are in I would say, a pretty dangerous position where what you'll end up with is very tame trail centres and bike parks where you can have them, but that's not the itch that we need to scratch a lot of the time. We need that outdoors space. So we need to start conversations. We need to be thinking more about what we're doing, and that's gonna be hard.
No, definitely. But I think just to delve into this a little bit deeper, especially what's going on with you guys in the local area. So what is it that mountain bikers are doing which is causing this friction? Because that's something that I think we need to, and people need to be very aware of when they're out riding. When you've got your Strava on and you're trying to get that latest calm, and I think you need to be aware of where you're going and what you are actually doing to that environment. So what are you seeing, and what sort of feedback do you guys get?
So we've got volume, right? Volume's a big one for sure. The amount of people, and then how you deal with yourselves in whatever climate it may be at the time. So right now, I don't know if you're seeing it so much, but definitely the groups are sometimes massive, and we're not meant to be going out in groups. And I know we're outdoors, and people are making their own judgments on what's legit and what isn't. I'm very much of the opinion that I'm not the guy in charge. I'm just going to go with it. All right. Whatever you tell me I need to be doing, I'm going to do. And I'm not whiter than white. I've broken enough rules in my time.
Yeah.
But I'll take responsibility for it. But when you're very visible, and especially when you have more equipment with you, a bag, a helmet, lights or GoPros or whatever, they make you look bigger, right? They bulk you up more. The colors we wear are often quite loud. They're either loud or very muted, and they can both work for and against you. The bikes themselves are not small. They're quite large. We're often gathered around vans and things, so we look bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Even if there's only 3 of you, you take up a lot.
I feel like the e-bike thing is also becoming more,
Sure.
prominent. That especially someone who's not really that aware of what a mountain bike is, and all of a sudden you hear someone ride off and it's making a noise. That's quite,
Sure.
it's quite unique for people to see that, especially older people who don't keep an eye on mountain biking, obviously. So that's
Definitely.
also.
And we've got big tires, right? Big tires, big wide, low profile or whatever, big knobbles on them, and they look like motorbike tires. And you get that association. They're starting to cross things over, and we're not mountain bikers anymore. We're motorcyclists or something that's similar. You're moving quickly. Even on an analog bike, you're still much more efficient than we would have been, and can move a lot faster. So again, visually, you become scarier. You become a bigger thing, and to horses and stuff as well, and dogs. It's important. So we need to be aware of that initially, and that's not something you can necessarily change, but just be aware of it. Be aware of where you are and what you would feel like if you were that person at that time, or if it was another group of people, or a different sport. If that was a bunch of guys on horses, would you feel like you were outnumbered? Then maybe, if you're a dude with long hair, been there, done that, and you suddenly step into a room of guys in, I don't know, Burberry, you feel different immediately, right? You know those eyes are on you, or even if you're not at risk at all, you feel like, oh shit. So we need to really be conscious of that and just think about what you're doing. Then when you're out, these places are busier. They're busier with everybody. So everything's not a race. I know we want to get our adrenaline up and get moving. It's good to do it, but we definitely need to be more conscious about how we're dealing with people on shared use trail, or even not shared use trail. If they're on an unofficial mountain bike trail, they have no more right over it than you do, but you have no right over it. So that's kind of where it ends, But we don't need to be, if it's dry and dusty, blowing up dust through a family's face as you go whizzing past. Just slow down a bit.
Same with puddles. Don't roost people. It's not cool. Yeah,
totally, man. Absolutely.
We have a load of signs up here. I don't know if you have them down south. I'm pretty sure it's a Ride Sheffield thing, and they just say, they're on a load of the gateposts and stuff. It just says, "Be nice, say hi." And I think
say hi, man. Yeah, I'm into it massively.
Yeah, and it does make you think. And I think if as a mountain bike community, it's something that we all take on. And every time you do see a family out walking, you stop, say hello, beautiful day, have a bit of a chat.
Yep.
I mean, if everyone did that, how quickly the stigma of mountain biking could change. That people go, "Oh, I met this nice young lads out in the woods today. They stopped, they chatted, we shared a biscuit or whatever."
Totally, man.
It's a massive thing, isn't it?
It is, and there's so I don't know if they've got them from this dude, but there's a guy out in the States or Canada anyway who's set up the Be Nice, Say Hi thing.
Right.
He's got an Instagram account. You can get stickers and stuff from that. With that in mind, is to exactly do that. And we're not very good at it in the UK. We don't like looking at other people saying hello to randoms you don't know. You kind of get a bit of a, what on earth are you doing? I don't know you. What's going on? Yeah. But certainly, first time I went out to Whistler, I couldn't ride. I had a broken wrist. I spent 2 weeks and I walked. I just walked everywhere. I was not a mountain biker. I was a hiker, essentially. And it blew me away how insanely polite everybody was. Not just the people who live there, work there, whatever, everybody. You walk past anybody and they'll say hi, People riding past say hi. And it lifts your spirit immediately, and I'm not that guy to normally do that, but it changed. That was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so I try and do it here. And, you get mountain bikers ride past you, and I'm on a mountain bike, and they won't even look at you.
That's so alien.
You move out of the way,
and
you don't get a thanks or any sort of are you crazy, man. This is insane. We're like, so we definitely need to work on that. And even if everyone else isn't, like you say, if that comes back as all of those mountain bikers I saw today were super polite, then that puts you above the other people who didn't bother saying anything. That's a better place to be.
100%.
Right? So
yeah,
absolutely that. And just, not doing a cutty in front of somebody or whizzing around them. If their dog's running wild, like, just hold back a second.
Yeah.
let that dog go past you or whatever. It's the best place to be, because that's such a huge part of winning the battle. If you've thought about how you look when you get together as your group, and then how you're seen from getting from your car or your house or your shop or whatever it is to your trailhead, if you've won that bit, the trails, like, that's you and your mates, really. You're probably not going to come into much interaction with anybody at that point.
True.
So you've won a huge chunk of the war.
Yeah.
Take your fucking rubbish home. Honestly, man.
Honestly. Yeah, it's crazy, man, how bad that is. Especially, again, and I don't think we should blame it on new mountain bikers as such and stuff like that, or new outdoorsy people, as Ollie calls them, or pandemic fitness people. But it's mind-blowing how much litter and shit people leave behind. Like, and I often see it again. It's down your way, S4P people there tidying up litter, and it's the youth as well as it is the older people and whatever. But holy shit, like, take your shit away with you. Like, just take this stuff home, man. It's insane. It is insane. How much time must you spend at the bike park picking up rubbish?
Unreal, man. And it's not all our guys, like, it really isn't. But the stuff that's there, it often is. And as Ollie said previously, like, you shouldn't feel like a martyr for going around picking up other people's rubbish.
No.
Like, I do it everywhere. I do it everywhere I go. If I see rubbish on the floor, I can't just walk past it. I can't do it unless there's a particularly strong reason for it. I can't do it. I'll pick it up and I'll put it in my pocket, or I'll hold it and I'll put it in the bin or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, everybody should be doing it, because less people will start throwing their shit on the floor if they see someone else picking it up.
Yeah.
Like Ollie said, make it look hard, because maybe then people will think about it a bit more. But whatever, like, if other people can't be asked to look after the area, then at least take some responsibility on yourself to do it as well.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't have to have trash-free trails. That shouldn't be a thing.
Totally.
It's great. It's great that they do it, but what the hell? That shouldn't be a thing. The reason it is a thing is because there's trash on the trails, because people cannot do it. And they hide it. Oh my god, I find rubbish in the craziest places. Like, the effort you have gone to fucking find that hole in that tree to bury your rubbish. Like, you could have just put it in the bin, dude. What's wrong with you?
It's a very sad state of affairs when people are doing that stuff, isn't it? Really, really sad.
Totally. And again, though, visually, like, if people know there are mountain bike trails, it doesn't have to be a mountain biker that's leaving their rubbish. They'll assume it's going to be a mountain biker, because the chances are the person who's left something. Lucozade Sport Bowls, man, they're the worst at the moment. I don't know why. Lucozade Sport's everywhere. It's that. And if you're seen to be picking it up as a mountain biker, then again, you get kudos for that. You get a little gold star against mountain biker names for it. So that is a huge thing, right? Anyone can do that. Anyone. All of these things that we've talked about so far,
so easy.
That's being involved, right? That's being a mountain biker. You don't have to pick up a spade. You don't have to organize a trail. You don't have to do anything. Just don't be an arse. Be a good person, man. Seriously, simple as that. Like, just think outside of yourself for a minute, and if you're on the road and there's a car behind you, like, just think about you being in that car. And I know you're only holding them up for 20, 30 seconds, but maybe now's not the time to practice your no-handed wheelies.
It's true.
Just think about it. Think about what you're doing, and don't affect someone else. When I think about driving a lot, because I feel there's a lot of similarities between it. And my driving instructor was not a cool dude at all, but he was a fucking awesome driver.
Right.
He was old boy, but the lessons he taught me were much more about, I mean, obviously driving the car, but about how to not affect other people, basically.
Yeah.
So don't pull out in front of someone if you're going to make them slow down, because you're affecting them and you had no right to. Well, it's the same with riding. Like, don't do something that's going to negatively affect somebody else, or maybe not even negatively affect. Don't do something that's going to affect someone else that they haven't had a choice in. That's removing their right to decide for themselves. Talk to them about it, for sure, if there's a thing there.
I think it's even down to, meeting people on a bridle path and assuming that the people on foot are going to move to the side so you can continue putting in that run. It's even down to that, right? And there's so much value in just stopping and letting people come past you and saying hello. That that totally changes again the stigma of mountain biking. It totally changes the interaction they've had with a mountain biker. And I think that as a collective, that is what we should all be really pushing towards.
Totally, man. Yeah. Totally. So that's like the basics, and there's loads of that. I've been listening to all sorts of podcasts from the States and Canada and things, and they're much better at it than we are. They're way ahead of where we are with the whole trail advocacy thing and coexistence. We don't do it very well in the UK. Coexisting is
I think what's interesting there as well is, we're talking about this influx of new mountain bikers, and obviously everywhere you look, man, bike shops don't have any bikes. Brands are sold out of bikes. We've had a massive influx of new people, which almost should mean that brands should be more mindful of the fact that there are more bikes out. Simple as that, right? And it is interesting to sort of think about what brands are doing to sort of help,
or not.
What exactly or not? Yeah, and obviously you're from a bike park. How hard is it to get brands involved in helping the bike park? At the end of the day,
massively.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, it's because of volunteers initially like you, and that these bikes can be sold. If there was none of that, then but all brands are struggling, right? The whole industry's struggling because people can't go riding. And I remember seeing that in you have it with other sports, obviously. Let's say, for example, they shut down public parks, football and all that team sports would be fucked. It'd just be over. So it's interesting to think that brands really should be going...
Not even, right? So probably more relevant would be they close all public football pitches.
Yeah.
Right? You can't play... If you're lucky, your school's got a stadium. But let's say you can only play football in a stadium. And in order to get to play in the stadium, you've got to be good enough to play in the stadium or be part of the club,
Yeah.
That's essentially where we are in danger of being. Like, the only place you can go and ride your mountain bike is in a bike park. Well, that's going to make life for bike park managers, runners, owners, whatever, builders, really difficult, especially in smaller areas, because it means you have to have a far greater range of trail to deal with a huge influx of people who probably shouldn't actually be there. They need to go cut their teeth on gentle, natural trail to get outside.
Yeah.
But then also detrimental to the top end of the sport, where they've only got their one place they can go ride. That's no good.
Yeah.
And the industry needs to do a lot more to be responsible for it. Like, they are happy selling bikes and e-bikes, man. Oh my God. 10 to the dozen to anybody who'll put hand in pocket. But then what? Like, if we don't have trail, you don't have anywhere to ride your bike.
But almost, I'm thinking out loud here as well that you said that America and Canada and stuff are so much far advanced, but a lot of those brands are based there. So I know from personal experience as well that UK brands, especially, I'm really good friends with the guys at Kotick. Like, they'll do anything in Sheffield to help the trail network. They'll do anything to support Ride Sheffield. They're constantly putting their hands in the pocket. But maybe because we don't have that many big bike brands based in the UK, that money doesn't become available. Santa Cruz and Specialized are always going to put money into their own sort of home, I guess you call it their base, and maybe that's a little bit of it. I don't know. And I'm just thinking out loud, totally.
Well, I mean, there's an element of that for sure, but I would say the UK market has got to be one of the biggest in Europe, right? I mean, it's huge, and again, the amount of extra money that some of the people have. We're a fairly affluent nation, so that it's not just shifting units, they're shifting high-end units and regularly as well. It goes around a lot. But then we've got, Trek are based in Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
Special, like Kingston or something, or somewhere around there. They've got.
I'm not sure, but you've got like Canyon down your way.
Canyon have been there for a while as well. YT just moved into Guildford.
Yeah, true.
Like, CSG, not too far away, like Bournemouth way. Which is, that's GT Cannondale. I
guess you've got Upgrade, which is Pivot. A lot of it is based down south as well.
I mean, yeah, man, exactly. And the smaller brands, like, that's great that Corsica are doing things, and DMR have helped us out for sure, and we got TF Tuned who've been really helpful, and there are people who are doing things, but man, these bigger brands, they don't need to be doing a lot, but they need to be making people aware of it. Simple as that. Like, we've got media projects coming out of our ears that are encouraging people to go out and ride aggressively or on freshly cut trail, and telling people to go out and build trail we haven't got space for. But no one's going out there going, hey man, do you know what, you should actually be thinking about looking after what we've got a bit. Let's try and make this better. Let's make this more inclusive. Let's make it so that you've got the trails that we want and that we can then keep and look after. Take some ownership of it. Be proud of what you've got, rather than going to scratch in a trail next to one that's already been scratched in, so you can get your fresh Insta clip, and then we're going to post that out to our millions of viewers, but we're not going to say, oh, by the way, like, take your fucking rubbish home.
And I think
don't scare that horse.
I think this is something that I mean, there is a bit of an elephant in the room with this, especially like you were saying, you've got a lot of pro riders around your way and a lot of eyes on those pro riders that are out riding these trails that people then aspire to go and ride.
Sure.
There's going to be an element of that as well, right? And I know it's not through malice, they're not doing it on purpose, obviously, or anything like that, but there is, as social media is growing and people are, you only have to look under any riding video, someone will have commented, where's that? Sure. People want to go ride it straight away, and I think that whole, back in the day when there was none of that, it was very difficult to go and find these trails. And I know there's loads around you. Obviously, we've got mutual friend in Ollie who's always out digging, and back in the day, all that shit had been private, man. Like, good luck finding some of those trails. Whereas now, it's easy to find it. It's not tough at all.
You get it on Trailforks or Strava or whatever, and that's it. And once it's there, it's there. You're not getting rid of that. It's out there. And so even that comes to a certain level of responsibility for just trying to look after it. You can't say don't tell anyone where that is. It's like, well, who am I going to go ride it with then? Because when Ollie's not around, like, so it's all right, I'll take my mate, and then he'll take it, and he'll take his mate. Like, you can't get rid of that.
But that's almost like part of it as well. Like, you build trails for people to come and ride it. A lot of it, that's what a lot of people get their enjoyment from. Like, you build that corner or that jump, and you want to see people riding that stuff, but maybe you just didn't want to see 10,000 people riding that stuff.
No, I think that a lot of it is, again, it's a societal problem where we use once and destroy. There'll be something that's being built because it's a Loma or whatever, and it's just about using it in its prime, and then as soon as it's dead, like, just leave it to rot. And what you'll do is just do something next to it, and then do something next to that, and then do something next to that. Whereas there's a certain amount of trying to get things back, maybe even taking the time to return things to nature a bit. If something's got rutted out and is no longer rideable, just knock the edges in. Knock the edges in, rake in some organic material again, and make it look like it wasn't there. And then in time, do you know what? You'll be able to ride that again at some point. That will come back, and you'll actually find there's more longevity in it. It's difficult. There's no right answer. There's definitely no right answer.
I think it's just about being mindful of that. Do you need to build that corner Do you know what I mean? Do you need to? Is it, how important is it to you in your mountain bike career to do that?
Yeah.
For most people,
Well,
it's not. You know?
No, it isn't. Absolutely not. I mean, there's a huge amount of ego involved in this sport. You know, we've all got it one way or another. We all want to look cool. You want to get your clips or a sick photo or whatever, or just feel like a legend. You know, absolutely all guilty of it. But if you can take any responsibility for that and be aware of it and not try and argue that you don't have that, then you're already kind of doing the right thing. You know, just accept that. Yeah, there is a certain amount of me trying to show off. You know, of course I want to show off. This is my thing, man. It's like learning to play guitar, going on stage and throwing in a solo, which you pretty much fuck up. But like, check it out, I can do it. Like, it is slightly narcissistic.
It is, so totally, man. No one wants to see a photo on Instagram of you going down the road on a mountain bike. You want to see something cool, right?
Not. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a difficult one, and get your clips, but think about how you've done it, and about what it's going to mean in the long run. You know, is it really visible from a very well-used footpath or bridleway, or can it be seen from someone's house or whatever? Because if it can, then it's going to set someone off. You know, try and find, if you're going to go rogue, then bury yourself in the woods somewhere. Like, go as far away as you can, and if you can see a badger set, leave it the hell alone. You know, like things like that, little things like that make a big difference. If you're undermining a tree, well, that tree might fall over at some point. Like, and that's been a massive problem at Woburn. One of their big problems was exactly that, was, you know, trees becoming undermined, and then as a liability issue, they you know, that's a huge thing. The landowners are responsible. If a tree falls on someone, you've got a huge issue at hand. So, and there are a lot of protected species. So you've got to think about, we're outdoors, right? We're meant to be outdoorsy people. We need to look after that. So don't do it. Maybe don't build a head height road gap over a footpath. If it's blind and you can't see someone walking across there, like, what happens? You don't want to hit someone midair. Like,
no.
You don't want to be in that position. It's not going to end well for either of you, and you're the one at fault. Like, you'll be in pain and also inside feeling like an absolute.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Recently, there's some local trails to me which had pretty much that. It had like a sort of built up wooden drop off thing, but it was blind and it was over a footpath. And it was funny because I was riding there with a friend a few weeks ago, and someone has knocked it down. There's been loads of hassle in the local sort of woods, and someone's knocked it down, this feature. And we had the same conversation. We both stood there going like, but how ridiculous was it that we used to ride that? Really, you know, if you really break it down, it was totally blind. You came over like the crest of a hill and just hit a wooden drop off, and it like went over a footpath and down the bank at the other side. And we were both like, it makes total sense it's gone. Like, why are we even worried about it? I can't believe no one's got injured.
That's it. That's it. You know, if it's for a one hit thing, then do it. And that podcast I linked you out to earlier on is pretty much based on exactly this sort of thing, and it's really interesting to hear people talking about it. So I guess is a good little thing for people to check out. It's Frontlines MTB podcast, right? And I listened to the first episode years ago, and just after we got talking, I was like, oh, actually, this has probably got some really interesting stuff in there, and went back through and just picked out a few that are absolutely on point with these situations, you know, about conflict and in mixed use trail, and how people have set up trail advocacy stuff, and what it means to get your media clips, and how you then deal with that as well, because you have to think after the fact. You can't just get the clips and just leave it there, you know. Don't build a film set and then just leave it standing.
That's fair. That's fair. But again, there has been that movement into, you know, the sort of jibby, cutty riding style, which that's what it needs. It needs sort of fresh trails, doesn't it? It needs, or it needs big features, you know, which take a lot of, which are become an eyesore in that area, and, you know, if they're not hidden, and that's a big
and
thing
potentially
too,
dangerous as well, right? Because what you do is you attract people, and like Ollie was talking about with that step up that he built, and immediately he's like, I'm actually kind of worried about it, and I've had conversations with him about it face to face as well. Like, so I don't know if I should knock it down or not, because I don't want to see someone riding it who shouldn't be riding it, and then feel like I'm responsible for the
Yeah.
the end result, you know, and
Yeah.
it's not responsible for it. It's not, but at the same time, he kind of is responsible for it.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and
Totally.
it's a really fine line. It's a super hard thing to try and balance, and still trying to help progression of the sport.
Well, that's the thing as well. I think that's, you know, a really interesting subject. So you're trying to progress. You've got those athletes around you, and you know, everywhere in the world that are trying to progress, but. You know, it's that whole thing of if you build it, they will come. But sometimes you don't want them to come. Like, you don't need it. You don't need the hassle.
No,
So
exactly.
that's super interesting to think that, you know, you are pushing the boundaries. But I'm just going to, if it's okay, I'm just going to take 2 minutes real quick. I've just got to go sort something.
Yeah, man.
I'll obviously edit this bit out unless you just want to talk about something.
Yes.
But I'll probably edit it out.
That's all good. I'm going to go grab a glass of water as well, man. So
Okay, perfect.
2 seconds, yeah.
1 minute.
Yep.
Almost perfect sort of segue, actually, talking about, you know, something you said earlier about liability.
Yeah.
This is obviously part of the problem, which is landowners being scared of someone getting injured. Forestry Commission, I guess, there'll be... So how... Yeah, you're probably best to unpack this a little bit more. So how does that work? If you are on land you should not be on and you get injured, what the hell happens?
So it's quite a difficult thing. So the Forestry England, who I've worked probably most closely with over the years, they have a whole operational booklet on these things, right? And how you're meant to deal with trail and wild trail in particular. So not sanctioned necessarily, but trail that they know is there. The trouble is ignorance is not a valid defense. If you know that the trail is there, then you are liable for it. All right. If you know that something is going on, if you know that mountain bikers are using your land, then you have a responsibility to make sure that they're as safe as they can be, or that you're doing your best to make sure that they're not using it, whatever, you know, that you're ground secure. So I guess it's similar to if a burglar, I don't know, there was always this urban legend about, maybe it's not an urban legend, but I'm going to say it is, but about a guy trying to burgle a house and he fell through like a glass roof or something and then tried to sue the people.
Right, okay, yeah.
Like, and it's the sort of shit that, especially as we move further and further into modern life, you can absolutely understand it, right? Someone finds a loophole and they go, oh yeah, totally, let's abuse that. Like, yeah, I was trying to rob your house, but I mean, I broke my leg climbing over your fence. So mountain bikers put themselves in a similar situation to a certain extent, you know. Oh, yeah, I was riding on your private land, but you knew that there was a dirt jump there and I impaled myself on a stick that someone had put in the landing or whatever, or sabotaged it in some way, shape, or tried to close it down, you know.
Yeah.
Who then is liable? Because someone's going to be coming for you, you know. And we hear it a lot. Oh, I know what I was doing, or I understand that it's a dangerous sport. It's like, that's fine. I get that. But you're also not in a position where it actually matters at the moment.
True.
Come back to me when you are in, you know, rest of your life being cared for by a team of people, where your house has had to have been changed to deal with life-changing injury, or where your family are absolutely in tatters because you're in a coma or whatever, you know, and they feel that somewhere along the lines someone else has responsibility for it, because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so there's not really a case for arguing against it. Especially if it's a landowner, if they feel they have liability for it, it's because they do.
Yeah.
And even if it's just a moral obligation,
totally.
Like, you don't need to wreck someone with that. So
it's hard to be in that position too, isn't it? I mean, there's not many people who own a lot of land that have got people doing stuff on that land that you're not comfortable with. I guess the only way I can really relate is like, you know, someone coming around your house and saying, "Can I go in the garden and juggle swords?" You'd be like,
"Sure."
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of. What happens if you cut your arm off? Am I liable? You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can really relate to it, and that obviously doesn't happen very often here. No one's in my garden like doing that, but it's the only way you can really relate to that, and having someone on your land. And it must be kind of scary as well when you do have that happening on your own land, just to be like, fuck, like what if this guy breaks his neck?
Exactly. And you have to think about it, not even that so much, but the practicalities. You
Yeah.
know, when you are in an exposed area, in an area where terrain is dangerous inherently, they usually have something in place for it. You know, you've got mountain rescue, you've got coast guard, you've got things like that, because they know that the sea is inherently dangerous. They know that mountains are inherently dangerous. You don't have low-level woodland rescue.
True, yeah, it's fair.
Because it's not something that tends to come up too often. You know, if you go to an organized event, chances are they're going to have thought about it, be part of their risk assessment process. They'll have something in place. You might, you know, for our races, we get in teams who are used to either working at our events or are used to working at events that are similar, because you know that they're going to work better for starters. But when it comes down to needing that first aid or whatever, that they'll be able to handle it very quickly and easily. We've always, from the committee up to now, we've always been very good with getting the right first aid crews on hand. But that's not a luxury we have when we're out on trails.
No,
and
you're
road
right.
trail on our own. And so what happens when you do have, and it's happened a lot, you know, there have been deaths recently, unfortunately, over the last couple of years in some of these areas here, and you know, life-changing injuries. What do you do when you need to be evacuated? Are you even prepared for that?
Yeah.
Do you even know where you are? You know,
Dude, it always makes me think, somewhat a little bit off topic, but that video of Cedric Gracia with the blood spurting out of his artery, like that scares the shit out of me. Not probably wasn't even a big crash.
No, it's innocuous. There's nothing.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you are faced with a life-threatening situation, and like, how do you deal with that? And again, whose land are you on? Where are you?
Yeah.
Is there
and
access?
So, like, you know, and from working in a bike park where we see a lot of injuries, right, and not usually bad ones, but you know, you see fairly regular injuries. It doesn't fill you with a great deal of hope about people who then aren't in an organized situation, because they expect you to be able to fix them. Hey man, I've broken my collarbone. It's like, well, dude, I'm not a surgeon. I can do absolutely nothing for you. You know, best case scenario, I can give you a sling, but if you're with people, you need to go to a hospital, dude. Simple as that. Like,
and is that the protocol usually at a bike park? Again, it's not happened to me, and I've not really been around it. So if you get injured at Rogate, what's the protocol? Are you meant to then figure it out? Are you there to help? Do you call the ambulance?
So we're first aid trained. You know, we are first aid trained, but we go through a training which is relevant to mountain biking. So thinking about the things that you might have with you as a mountain biker, how you can use an inner tube or body armor or whatever for multiple reasons, you know, the things that you're likely to have there. So we're there to help, but ultimately we can't fix you. We're not medical people. We're people who run bike parks and then are there to try and help you up until the point where you can get medical help. You know, that it's as simple as that. If you're on your own, if you're a child or whatever, or we have to wait for an ambulance, we'll keep you as warm as we can. We'll keep you comfortable. We'll, you know, if there's, I mean, God forbid, there's a massive bleed on the go, then we're going to help you as best we can with what we've got available to us in our first aid kits. But I can't fuse your bones. I can't, you know, like, if I'm not going to put in your dislocated shoulder, I'm not trained to do that. I can't do it for you, you know. It's, and if you're not prepared for those sorts of things to happen to you, then what are you doing when you're out in the wilderness in real trail? You know, okay, well, what do we do? Well, okay, you need to phone an ambulance. Okay, well, do you know where you are? No idea. Okay, that's a bad time, isn't it? Like,
Totally.
Because then you start panicking. Everyone starts panicking, and you put yourself in a shit position. So,
what would you advise people do? Like, just out of interest, I know there's like there's like the 3-word app now that you can get, right, which is really good.
What 3 words? Get what 3 words? Like, okay, so my experience with emergency services call centers has been really mixed. I have to say that it's not always the easiest thing. So, like, take a minute, calm, keep it chill, all right, and get what 3 words for sure, because it is a super useful app.
We'll put a link in the show description for that as well, because it is
everyone should have it.
Yeah,
and I think certainly they use it pretty well in the States too. And I mean, it's worldwide. So, but I know they use it in North America. So definitely get it, use it. It's super good. But honestly, get some first aid training.
Yeah.
Go out, get some first aid training, even if it's basic. Take a couple of things out with you, just a really basic first aid kit, a couple of bandages, a big triangular bandage or like a big bandage because you can overdo something, and that's okay. If you underdo it, it's no good at all, you know. So you don't have to have lots with you, but it's worth having something with you. And you know, the classics, make sure people do know roughly where you've gone. You know, they're not going to know where you are, but if you're going to Pease Lake, make sure your mum, your dad, your husband, your kids, whatever, your mates know, I'm going to Pease Lake, you know, roughly what time you're going to be there, what time you're going to be back or whatever. It's just things like that. They will help if shit goes downhill. Well, yeah, we've all had injuries. I've had crashes. I've had to walk out of places and 3 miles later, like, man, I wish I'd planned this better, you know, but you know, it's a big deal. But to go back to the liability side of things as a landowner or land management or whatever, that's got to be a concern as well. Like, okay, even if these people are here, if it goes sour, how am I going to even help them or deal with the backlash that comes with that from the emergency services, from whatever, you know, and it will happen. It becomes public knowledge very quickly. So yeah, you got to really consider that.
Definitely. Mate, it's some super interesting topics, and I think it is very interesting to just keep people aware of, you know, what it means to be a mountain biker, what it means to be outdoors, the impact you're having on the community, the impact you have on the mountain bike scene in general. You know, it's easy to tarnish. It only takes someone to have access to a big group of people, like a large Facebook group, to tarnish, you know, mountain bikes in your local area.
Well, that's it, man. And they're so huge at the moment. We have got so many big groups. There are some huge mountain bike community pages, and you know, there's a real strength in the community to some degree, but there is also a very large lack of awareness within that community. I think there's so much more to this than just getting on your bike and riding it. If you think that that's all there is, then you're not helping out, you know. So I guess to summarize it in the best way possible, right? Because it's been heavy. I know you got places to get to.
It's cool, man.
But like, what I would ask of people as someone who's kind of done it themselves, and from listening to other people talk about how it works, and from having seen it work across the world. And I think what we need to start doing is pulling together in communities that aren't interested just in how gnarly you are or what new pedals you've bought or whatever, and actually thinking about the trails you ride. So care about the place you're in, all right? And number one, take the time to find out whose land it is, because frankly, that's respectful one way or another. And it's worth having those conversations beforehand rather than because of something. I know there are a lot of places that are highlighted through our talking to the forestry that I know of, and that I'm in the background trying to get people together with, so we can get these conversations started to try and save it all. You're not going to save it all. You know, there are places where it's not practical, or it's just not possible to have it there. You can't have every trail, but what you might be able to have is some trail, and good trail as well. You know, you don't have to put a spade in the ground. Maybe find out whose trails they are. If you're riding trail regularly, well, find out who's been working on it, man, and talk to them. Find out what's going on. How can I help? Can I help? Can I not help? Some people aren't made for it, you know. I've seen people work badly. Like, you're probably causing me 3 times more work than you needed to, but you can help by just not being rubbish, you know, or by whatever. There's loads of ways you can do it.
Maybe pick instead.
Well, maybe, or talking to people. Maybe you're really good at talking to people. So actually, and I'm shit at it. So maybe you go do that for me, or help me out. Are you good at using the internet? Can you find out whose land this is, or whatever, you know? And think, if you're going to be building trail, think about where you're doing it. Just, if you want it secret, keep it secret.
Yeah.
And try your hardest to. If someone, write things. There's nothing wrong with having a sign up. I think actually people need to get more used to reading the signs that
True.
they put
Yeah,
out.
it's
And
true.
if they're more regularly out there, then maybe people will. So if you don't want someone Stravaing it, tell them.
Yeah.
Put a sign at the top of your trailhead, name
Yeah.
it. Think about naming it. Like, we don't name trails that much. There'll be a million trails or a million names for one trail on Strava because someone didn't get com on it, so they've made a new segment or whatever. But we don't take ownership on it. And it's, if you don't name your dog,
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
show
quite
that you
similar
love
to
your dog,
actually
right?
what the guys at Trash Free Trails are doing, which is basically trying to take ownership of an amount of trail, within a 5 kilometer radius of your house and stuff. Like, own that trail, like, look after it, go litter pick it. And I think people should also be mindful about when you do go and do trail maintenance. Like, don't go in there unless you can, like with a chainsaw, and because that can be quite, you're talking about mountain bikers coming towards you looking quite sort of big and scary. Imagine seeing someone walking into the woods with a load of shovels and a chainsaw, like
Definitely.
equally as scary, equally as sort of like, people will start wondering, like, what are they doing in there? Like, why are they digging stuff up? That makes no sense. Like,
Definitely, man.
maybe be mindful of that. Like, I think the whole thing, isn't it, about being mindful about how you're acting, how you're coming across to other people who aren't mountain bikers.
That's it, man. Yeah, respect and responsibility really are the two main things. Respect everybody else, from the other people who you don't understand to the people you do understand, the other people who are riding the trails, the people who are building them, and take responsibility for what you're doing and how you're doing it, because then you're more likely to be better at it. So if you are taking tools out to the woods, keep them together and hide them away. Put them somewhere that's out of sight. It's not going to be picked up by somebody. Isn't going to be picked up by someone who shouldn't be using it. But you don't need a toddler walking into the woods and coming out with a mattock in their hand or a rusty saw.
Not a good
or
look.
But it's also really messy looking. There are local trails that are super good, and you're just like, there's a spade over there, and there's an axe up in the tree or whatever. And it's like, it's
a big green wheelbarrow.
Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping, keep things together, build a little hut, make it good, make it back to the woods. Like, you can do that. And if they're not your trails, leave them alone. Find out whose it is. If you think that there's something that could be done with it, then talk to the person who's gone to the effort of doing it. They might not own it, it might not be their land, but by then just cutting a corner into it, or by putting a double in, or by felling a tree, or putting a straight line around a corner or whatever, you are disrespecting someone else's efforts. You're changing something you had no right to in the first place, and you're creating more damage around it. Especially if it's a pretty tense area already.
Totally.
And if you're being told not to be somewhere, just leave it for a bit, give it a rest, and find out a way of trying to rebuild that relationship. Get the right people together. Speak to your local bike shop. Speak to your local bike brands. Whatever. Get half a dozen of you together to be really proactive and accept that it's going to be really hard work, and talk. Find out who you need to talk to and make it work, because it can definitely work. And and try and hunt down people who've done it before, because then you start unifying them. It comes back to our bike park network. If you can get unified, not trail centers but areas of trail, then it's much easier to spread it out further again. You can start thinking about the permanent trails and grading them so that you know what you're riding. You can start telling the landowners, look, these guys are already doing it, we're joining in with them. We're taking the danger away from you.
Yeah.
Because at that point, what you've got is mountain bike trails which are potentially no more damaging than a bridleway or a footpath. And if they come into no other conflict with other people, there should be no real reason for it not to be allowed. And that's for the guys up top, for the people who don't understand, to start understanding. They sooner or later, I've got to realize that it's extremely big business. It's really good for our health, and that we're actually, as a nation, really good at it. So let's not squander this opportunity.
Also very true, yeah.
But it's good. Make it. It's from a media perspective, it looks really good. You're starting to see it in mainstream adverts and
yeah.
film
It's
and stuff.
definitely not all
more
doom
often.
and gloom, and I hope people don't think this conversation has been that.
No,
It's more,
not at all.
it's more about being aware of the impact that we're having. You know, like I say, as we're getting better as a nation as well, and getting more people riding. You know,
Totally, and how to make sure that it continues. It is all because, you know, as I said, I've seen these things, and I've been calling it for a long time. Like, this isn't going to work out. This is going to go the wrong way if people don't start thinking about it more. And I'd love to do more. I'd love to have more time to do it, but I've had a lot on my plate for the last 10 years. So, you know, but it just needs that more people to come in, to pull together, to really think about how to get it going. And it will be okay. It will be fine. We'll lose some along the way, but we should be able to build up a load more. And, you know, especially with e-bikes, you could end up with this network that's nationwide, that you could actually e-bike around the country potentially. You know, it is feasible. It is.
Totally.
It's not going to happen now, but it is feasible. And I mean, imagine that. It'd be such a sick thing to be able to have, and to make the UK a destination. If people are going to start coming to the south of England to ride, where they might go see Brendog, where they might see Ollie, well, let's make sure there's actually something for them to ride. The local communities will thrive, they'll love it, and the bike industry will love it. Yeah. But, you know, everyone's got to give their little bit back. So, yeah, man.
Beautiful way to bring everything back full circle, man. Really
That's
nice.
it. I mean, it is. It's all connected, hey.
It is, totally. It's all there. Totally. Thank you so much for taking time out to do this. And
no problem, man.
And yeah, it's probably long overdue as well, to be honest with you. We've been saying we're going to do something for a while, but maybe it's something we should follow up in the next couple of months. We'll follow up, see what people the reaction to this episode, and maybe people want to reach out with questions about trail centres and trail management and stuff like that, and we can go through and answer some of those. So
happily, mate, anytime. And you know, thanks for.
Cool.
I know it's not been big over here; it really hasn't, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen and to chat with me about it.
No, my pleasure.
It really came to a head. It's like, this needs to get out there now. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
definitely.
Anyone's got any questions? You know, give me a shout.
Where should people reach out, man? Where's the best place to find you?
Hit up my Instagram account, I guess. Rocksteady Sambo, probably the best one, and I can just chuck out email addresses or whatever. You know, I'll do what I can. I'm not going to. You know, I am not a wizard. I can't fix everything. I don't know everything at all, but we might be able to help things out. And, you know, this weekend situation I'm working on already and trying to find the right people. And if anyone's got anything
there's a few people I'll link you up with as well. I don't know if you know any of the guys up here at Ride Sheffield.
No,
I'll
really.
link you up with those guys
Cool.
because I think they can help quite a lot actually with what they're doing up here. So we'll do that after, like, you know, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, man.
We'll do it after this. But yeah, thank you again, man. Thank you for
happy days. No worries, dude.
Speaking
Pleasure.
to the mountain bikers.
Yeah. Cool.
Hang on there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Hook It podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit different to normal, but I hopefully think that we touched on some really important subjects and helped raise awareness and start conversations about trail advocacy, trail maintenance, and basically being good people when we're out enjoying the outdoors and, you know, riding our bikes. If you have enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. The best thing you can do to support this podcast is to head over and leave a review on iTunes, or again, I mean, more importantly than that, share the episode, but leave a review on iTunes, write something if you really want, and don't forget to please support our sponsors, Works and the Hydra Shot, Saks Underwear, Hook It Products. Don't forget 10% off. Just enter the promo code podcast. If you're getting involved with the Winter Defiance Handbook, then send over some images and some videos of what you're getting up to. And have a great rest of your weekend, whatever you're up to. It'd be great. Again, if you have enjoyed this episode, reach out, let me know, start some conversations. Thank you, folks. Peace out.